So there's a general problem that if we have a gameplay loop and that gameplay loop just doesn't have a whole bunch of recorded, archived documentation data on it, it's very difficult to triangulate kind of what the foundational basic skills, themes, principles are to pursue that gameplay loop. So for like light fighters, for instance, there's tons and tons of documentation on how to light fight, and because it's been taken from so many perspectives from so many different potential light fighter ships for such a long time over so many patches, even insights that we had in 3.0 where the flight models was way different, a lot of them still carry over to 4.0. In heavy fighters though, there's a specific problem where we don't really have all that information. So the purpose of this video is to try to start filling in the gaps of that information. That way, hopefully, eventually, we can start threshing through all that sort of information to try to find some of those foundational principles for heavy fighters and create like eventually maybe someone creates a capstone video that really shows like what you need to heavy fighter fight in dogfights and duels. So I'm just going to go through a snapshot of all the videos I had yesterday and to pretty much start trying to do that. So started the very first video here. Got the MX. You'll notice that the MX is kind of interesting here because the power management is a little more complicated than the regular Guardian. You only have limited power on it. You want to run 2 military shields on it, not industrials. The reason is industrials require a large minimal amount of power to put into it that will then take away from your weapons and your engines. The military only require at least a minimum of 1 input, so if you put 2 power to shields, you get maximum shields out of those shields. So, and we want as much maneuverability as possible, we want as much weapons as possible. Generally, you'll want to play with just coolers off in duels. If you have excess power, put at least 1 into it, or if you're in squadron battle, put at least 1 into it, that way you don't get missile spammed. So, because if you have no coolers at all, missiles will be very, very hard for you to shake in the Guardian. Here, the base Guardian, the Guardian MX is a little more straightforward to fire with. I run 1515 manual gimbal VJoy, which you can check in game settings, and you can just fight and shoot in this 1515 square. I usually try to turn on stagger fire mode also so I can sort of ping them on the edges and stuff. So you'll notice that I start getting locked into this rotation, but I'm able to shake it off just by using the hardest inputs that I can on it. So the interesting thing here is if you look at my velocity and you look at the space dust, I'm going 308 meters a second to the left. So during that last pass, I actually pushed through him because I saw him start to pre-nose. And because he's there, he isn't able to quite get in the slot on me. And I do it again that direction. And we'll get some shots. But you'll notice here, now I'm going backwards, right? I didn't push forward with my W to blow past through him, so now he's going to get me stuck in the slot right here. Or not quite, because he was out of boost. So if he didn't have that, he might have actually been able to get me in there, but he ran himself out of boost for those first 2 engagements. So let me pull up another one here. I think this one I actually do lose, and the person's able to do that. So you can see this person's pre-nosing, but they're likely trained me blowing through them a whole bunch, so because I don't blow through them that time, they don't quite get there. But you can see I'm stuck in the slot. So what do I do as soon as I'm stuck in the slot there? Let's actually rewind it. So I get to this point right here where like I have almost no boost anymore, right? I have no boost, I have no speed, I have no nothing. So my speed actually starts to go up as I hold a forward input and I blast forward this way and I hold right strafe because right strafe is the opposite way from him, and that gets me nose. And I didn't even really have any boost there. So if you're able to get that in this ship without much boost, that's pretty nuts. You also notice I'm turning on yaw because the MX has the same pitch as yaw, and you have these giant practical like tower shields on the left and right side of your ship. So if you push and you strafe to the left or strafe to the right, the opponent has to shoot and lead to the left or to the right. So then all of a sudden your wings are protecting you at that point. Now, he takes out a wing of mine here. He takes out 2 of my wings here, so I can't barely fly anymore. But because I'm flying gimbal, I can actually start to fight him. And what I figure out here is my yaw. My yaw is like broken. I can't yaw anymore, but I can pitch and I can pitch up. So I start shooting him in pitch here. And he has a red nose, so it's like, don't give up yet. So I keep trying to yaw though, and I don't realize that I need to really turn on pitch at this point. but I do figure it out near the end here. But notice how I'm down 2 wings and he's not even able to like really lock it down yet here. Nice thing is also you actually become a harder target oftentimes when you lose these stabilizers because the auto aim starts freaking out. And here I'm aiming on pitch, and he gets me. But he was Rhinos, super close one. As we go through these, I'll try to get more specific as we're going through. All right, so this fight is actually the first fight of this. This fight here, I know that this guy is based on his organization he flies with and stuff, that he is going to play very flighty. He's going to play at really zoomy speeds. He's not going to stick close for very long. So keeping that in mind, I know I'm going to need to be able to counterplay that, and the only way for me that I can think of counterplaying that is taking out a more advanced maneuver for heavy fighting, which is actually starting to corkscrew, which you don't really need to corkscrew when you're fighting with heavy fighters with gimbals and stuff for aiming, because your pitch and your yaw kind of don't matter as much when you're fighting with gimbal, as long as the target's in front of you. So you don't need roll to assist you in getting to like a pitch position. Additionally, with the Guardian, pitch and yaw are equal. So even if you were playing fixed, you don't need roll in that perspective. But we do need roll to sort of create just this really smooth barrel roll that I'm not that great at. But even not being that great at, it's minimally effective to start spreading out the damage across the whole of my ship to non-vital regions. And here the cool thing is like, you don't have to be a great corkscrew roller. Like, you don't need to know how to corkscrew and aim at the same time. You just need to be able to hit those gimbal shots even while you're spinning. So I noticed that this time that I fight that guy and stuff, I'm like, he's trying to push and he's not able to win the pushing fight close and stuff. And I'm like, I was expecting him to fly really flighty, which he does in this second fight here and stuff. He starts playing like how he normally does. You can tell that this vid is so long that a single vid clip, my clips only record the last 90 seconds. So this fight has been going on for more than 90 seconds. That's how long this fight's been taking. So here I start really using the corkscrews because he is really difficult to close in on. I actually lost a fight before this because that I forgot to record because my game froze and I got just destroyed and shot at a whole bunch during the fight. But I still almost came back and won it. But one of the issues was I was pushing and closing in just in a way that wasn't great because it was losing me a ton of boost. So you can see that I'm trying to actually close it here. I'm pushing just a little bit on my inputs there. You can see just a second ago there, I'm actually pushing on forward. Even though I'm going backwards, you'll see my G input. My G input's going actually full forward to try to catch him on that blow through, to try to keep the range and actually tag him. So I try to rotate because I see I'm really, really red. I'm trying to spread the damage out to my wings rather than hitting my center, but he's still getting a ton of center shots. So I have stagger fire mode here. It's actually pretty crazy because if you see, because of my corkscrews, because you have such strong strafes with the Guardian, at certain ranges, the cross-section actually matters less because auto-aim is so important with how the shots are led and everything. And I actually am regaining shields when he's actually been pinged and can't regen shields here. But he does get some before it, but both of us still have tiny bit of shields left. And he gets mine down just a second before him, which is problematic for me, but I ping his back down here. And I try to just commit for the win here, but I'm taking lots of risky shots. I turn there on the yaw just a little bit to try to mitigate more damage to my center side, but that was a really close fight. For someone who adapted to my playstyle on his third fight with me, so it's one thing is heavy fighter isn't just a novelty from that sort of perspective. If it was, people should be able to adapt to it super quick and then just stomp it. But people are adapting to it, but they're still struggling against it. So, which I think why there's a lot of merit to it. I titled this one "Don't Get Baited, Have a Cutoff." So during this fight and stuff, the opposite pilot has a really good job at staying right outside of my gimbal range. Not necessarily going through and staying off my nose and like getting right behind me where I can't see them, but staying right off of my gimbal range and then moving across the screen. Because one of the things you'll notice is that you actually have a little tiny ghost indicator that shows where your gimbals are next to your pip. And that ghost indicator takes a decent amount of time to move from one point of the screen to the other side of the screen. It actually is oftentimes slower than your ship can actually turn. So the same corkscrews as earlier and stuff. Same thing I did against the previous pilot and stuff, which just disjoint a lot of the fire. I stopped corkscrewing once I feel like, hey, I think I can hit this guy, because I want to out-trade him, and that extra DPS I get from that extra stability helps me. So I turn on yaw because yaw have less obstructed damage. You can see there I start pitching a little bit, and one of my guns actually stops firing, which is your problem. I'm trying to push here and stuff, but it keeps on getting off of my gimbals. But once I get enough speed, which you actually see a little bit ago, you can predict when that time is about to happen based on the speed bubble here. So I'm at 280, 280, 280, and it's in the negative, and then it starts pushing, and then as soon as it starts collapsing and I bring that speed in is usually when that sort of splash happens. This one's just funny. Again, that just roll fire is really good, but you gotta be careful. You can easily black out during it. So there I actually do a little bit of a cutback, which I'll talk more of in a second. Oh wait, this isn't the funny one. My bad. All right, this is an important one to go through twice though. So during this fight, this is actually a really way closer one. So here I'm doing the corkscrew roll on the entry and everything. I'm actually trying to keep even with his neutral while keeping his pip on my right side, because that's where the aim is the least obstructed. So when you're rotating, you're trying to do that. I see he's actually starting to, or feel that he's starting to potentially pre-nose. I may have done it unnecessarily, but that's why I turn left here and I push to the right and push forward, and that just extends it like to Mach 10. Now, what I did was probably excessive, but it's a maneuver I'll do in later videos and stuff again here. And he regains a lot of his shields for it and stuff, but I'm able to get here then. I do a similar thing here, in which I flip him to the other side, I push to the right, and I go to the left, but it doesn't quite cook out because he's not actually pre-nosing in that. He's just like normally orbiting me when I go for that move. So here I'm trying to turn on yaw. He's really good and is able to juke into pitch there and dodge where my gimbals can actually aim. And because he pushes out at just the right time to around 700 to 900, my shots just aren't really effective on him on nose. And he got so many shots in there, I'm actually already red hole. So I'm trying to corkscrew to disjoint all those shots to make him not hit me in the center. Still gets a couple, so it's a really, really close one. Now this is the funny one. So one thing to note here is if you turn on yaw, you're actually less vulnerable to blowing up from collisions, just the way the geometry works, because if you're turning on pitch and yaw, someone's going to crash into your body, but if you turn on yaw, people are more likely to crash into one of your wings. It's really difficult for them to crash in your body if you turn on yaw. I may have misnamed one of these videos. Yeah, so here again, corkscrew on approach. I'm pushing in because I do want the fight not to take place at super close range. This is second of this fight category. And here I'm pushing to the right. I'm kind of cognizant of where the station is, not to push too much towards it. Again, shooting on yaw here. Pushing to the right, but I feel like I'm getting stuck in slot and crash again. But This might have been the same video, so it was a rough draft for this format anyways. All right, so this is a really good example of a more advanced maneuver that I used once in one of those previous fights and stuff, which is kind of doing what's called a 2-circle maneuver. So here I'm rotating, and firing, and then here he's just getting me in the slot, and I do not like it. I'm stuck. Can't really get nose on him all that well. He could have extended there if he wanted to. He's extending a little bit late here, but he extends enough that he doesn't really get any too meaningful damage on him and stuff. And if he wanted to, he could extend farther and get a full shield reset and stuff. But here I keep getting a couple of pings on him. He's letting me get my shields, and this is a good evidence. If someone isn't firing you at a range like this and stuff, they're just committing to a full-on knife fight because they're saving all their capacitor that they think that they can just like come in and 24/7 rotate you. So I see his pitch. If you look in the top right-hand corner here, let me actually get the thing here. You can see right here that his ship is rotating to point into me because he's over to my right, right? So if my ship's right here, he's positioned right here, and he's turning towards this way. So he's looking to maneuver behind me all the way over there. He's doing a pre-nose. So he's turning his nose before he actually gets in front of me, because at the moment, he's like right here, right? He's up there. So in a couple of seconds, he'll be behind me. So in order to counteract that, I turn the opposite direction, and now he's all the way on my left. So this is what's called like 1 circle. If you look up like basic flight maneuvers on Wikipedia and stuff, you have a 2-circle, which is like yin and yang, where like everything is going, both people are going going this way, making like a two circles, because it takes longer for them both to draw the circle. I don't know why it's already called 2-circle, but this is 2-circle, right? And the entire time, this person can shoot at this person, and this person can kind of shoot at this person and stuff. But in this case, what we do is we take that and we change the dynamic. So as the other person's coming in to get behind us over here, what we actually want to do is go in the same direction. So instead, what we're going to end up doing is making it into a 1-circle where we go in the same direction as the people, which will then cause our paths to go like this. And this is really good for us because this giant line here makes for really good extensions. So let's wind it back here and see that again. So he turns over there and I turn left, so that we're turning both in pretty much the opposite direction to close that circle way faster. And maybe that's why it's called a 1-circle, because you make the circle twice as fast as you would when you're doing a normal 2-circle orbit. So here, I start turning normally, because if you do successfully do that, it tires the person's ship out a whole bunch and they lose out on all their boost. We'll go into that one more time here, actually. Because when you do this 1-circle, you don't actually need to use a whole bunch of boost to do it, because you can rely on your forward input, which is twice as strong as your other inputs most of the time, to get you to the SCM wall before you start to boost. So you can see I'm at 81 boost here. I actually regened a whole bunch of boost. So here I start holding the W key first, and I am starting to boost a little bit too early, but this gets me to speed wall really quick. And then I start boosting with W key and with right input. You can see that G meter. See this G meter right here? I'm boosting the opposite direction of where his pip is. And I'm also pushing the opposite direction of where his position was previously. So at this point, I'm going to start letting go of the forward input. And as I turn my nose onto him, I'll optionally either forward or back based on his position to try to either hyperextend him and keep him so far out that I can regen shields, or try to keep him in that like sort of sub 700 meter pocket where I can actually effectively damage him. And here I do the maneuver one more time, and that just helps burn through a whole bunch of boost. And it may have been excessive, but here at this point, I almost kind of try to do the maneuver there in some ways, but I realized that his ship seems really tired, so I then commit to just trying to finish the fight by pushing in and doing the 2-circle rotation. So that's one of the, like, advanced heavy fighter maneuvers, if there were an advanced one, is knowing when to one circle and do it successfully. So as we talked before, corkscrewing is really important here. So I'm actually oftentimes during these corkscrews, I'm oftentimes actually tricording. I'm holding a forward input, which you can kind of see on my G input meter, and kind of side inputting, which you can kind of see on my input meter, and then I'm usually up strafing. The reason I'm up strafing is that creates the most G force when you have your landing gear down. When you have your landing gear down, your up strafe is actually stronger on the Guardian, meaning that creates more displacement between you and where your opponent is going to shoot, making you harder to hit because you're a faster target and creating more distance. But the reason I add in the side strafe input is you want the bullets to not just rain on top of your head, right? So like if you have the bullets just raining down on top of your head and you're up strafing, they lead up, right? And then they're going to land and they're going to hit you in here. And this is your vital area. This does not have that much HP, and if it gets devastatingly damaged, you just die. So if you just put in a little bit of side, right? You put in a little bit of side, all of a sudden you start getting hit here, and this can take a lot of damage. You can take a lot of damage there and not die. So I try to use a combination of the strongest input and then a little bit of displacement. That way I can decide and influence where some of the shots end up landing. And it's also a lot of times why I'll turn on yaw, particularly once my shields are down. Once my shields are down, I'll focus a little more on yaw if I'm able to and can spare the boost. That way the shots hit me in the side. So you can see here, if you see that G input meter, it's just really hard to see because I'm putting in so many inputs, so they're all like really spread. But I'm using W to actually try to push on him. I'm using rotation, and I'm using side strafe and up strafe to get towards him. And you just see, like, I'm taking a decent amount of shots here, but everything is still blue just because it's spreading all the damage around the ship. I think it's like a s'mores. You're trying to rotate all the damage. All right, so those were some more complicated maneuvers. So this fight right here hopefully goes through a little bit more of the basics and everything. So again, pre-flight check, you turn off your coolers, you turn on, power up your weapons, power up your engines, power up your shields. If you're going to take one thing out of something, take it out of your shields, because one pip away from shields only affects your regen rate. It doesn't actually affect your max HP. You need all the boost and rotation you generally need against really, really hard players, and hopefully you're fighting in fights that someone doesn't force you to fight for 5 minutes where shield regenning actually matters, because those fights suck. But if you do put one into missiles, into coolers, that way missiles are easier for you to flare. Because if you don't have power, you'll actually see right here, if you don't have any power to coolers at all, you'll actually see your IR signature just goes crazy absurdly high. It takes like 10 plus flares to flare a missile with that, which means you can only flare like 4 missiles consecutively. So in squadron battle, generally, you are going to want to have 1 pip into coolers. And I usually take that away from shields, but you can also take it away from engines. Don't take any away from weapons, because if you take it away from weapons, that's like 20% of your DPS gone. So here, this is this first and second ship and stuff that I'm fighting against. So I'm just holding the opposite strafe input that he is. So you can see I'm holding left strafe, and I'm holding up strafe, and he's in the bottom right here. And then I'm shooting on yaw as I can to keep him in the area. So he rotates here, so now I'm pushing to the right and I'm up strafing, and then now he's over here pushing to the left and I'm up strafing, and eventually you can just aim him down and take him out. Problem is you can see I did use a lot of boost there, so if they push in a little more and then you run out of boost, then you can be in a precarious position. So putting it all together, you can check out this pretty difficult fight here, which is versus like a really ace player and stuff, and he's really good because I know this guy plays a lot of atypical ships, so I start doing the corkscrew maneuver on the entrance, and we kind of neutralize with each other, which is why both our shields go down. Here I'm able to get a decent amount of shots onto his nose because he's just flying in a straight line near speed wall that way, so all the bullets are just drifting into his nose because his pancake is just right there. So it's like I'm shooting his pancake from range, but you can see he's starting to actually, this is where you know the guy's cracked. He's actually flying now with himself drifting to the side, and because he's drifting to the side, look at where the bullets are actually starting to hit. They're starting to hit actually his wing as his wingtip gets red. Because his nose is red, so if any more bullets really hit his nose, he's just cooked. So here I'm trying to neutralize him, I'm trying to finish the fight, but because I'm doing it too aggressively, he's able to just blow past through me. So you got to be really patient with some of these sometimes. But he's really hard to hit at range here because he's staying outside that 900 meter range where it's really difficult to hit. And you can see he's still presenting his side profile to where the pip is oriented, which means that my shots, you can actually see them getting pinged in the distance there, right? So if you actually go frame by, you can see the bullets actually pinging his wing because the way that he's rotating and the way he's drifting and where I'm aiming, they're hitting there rather than his center. And it's possible some of that might be able to be done by aim, but you can see I'm shooting him dead in the center here. And I'm actually getting a lot of body shots rather than no shots, just the way he's flying. And he actually flips around to his other side here to start actually doing it even on his other wing a lot of the time. That way I can't blow up his other wing. So you can actually see his other wing now getting hit and sort of tanking for him. So he's almost flying in the way that I fly the Guardian, but in a light fighter. And because I'm doing so much on pitch and pitch here to be really aggressive and turn faster so I can neutralize faster, and because I'm low on boost, I'm taking a whole bunch of shots to my center because I'm not turning on yaw, which is a big mistake. But I am fortunately able to just use that little extra pitch and then get him out at the very end, but it's a super close fight. Oh, that's all the clips I have from the 18th. So as I get more and stuff, I'll go through more of the stuff. If you guys have questions, just let me know.